Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Smackdown review. And Smackdown tonight was absolutely terrible, in my opinion. Just a god-awful show it was. So we had Dolph Ziggler and Roode end up taking on the Street Profits. Sami Zayn versus Daniel Bryan. Bianca Belair versus Natalya. Buddy Murphy versus Corbin. And Kevin Owens versus Jey Uso in the main event, which I'm like, this. We saw this from them a few weeks ago, and we're getting it again. But overall, SmackDown was just a terrible show tonight. So let's get on with the review. So SmackDown opened up with Jey Uso. Jey Uso ended up coming out, and he got on the mic and ended up saying that after Survivor Series, everyone is talking about The Undertaker's final farewell, and that they should be really talking about Roman representing SmackDown by defeating Drew McIntyre. So Roman ended up coming out. He ended up interrupting Jey Uso, and Roman and Paul Heyman came out. Roman took some time before coming into the ring. So as soon as Roman and Paul Heyman got in the ring, Paul Heyman ended up grabbing the mic from Jey Uso, handed it off to Roman. Roman gets on the mic, and he ends up saying, "Play it." So we got a video package of Survivor Series, of how Team Raw won the elimination match, the Survivor Series 5-on-5 elimination match. We saw how Roman ended up dismissing his cousins, Jimmy and Jay, backstage. Told them that he didn't have time for losers. And it also showed how Roman ended up defeating Drew McIntyre in the main event, where he got help from Jey Uso. So we saw that. And then after the video package was over, Roman ended up saying that he never told Jey he needed help with Drew McIntyre. Reigns ended up asking Jey why he thinks he and Team SmackDown lost. Jey ended up saying that the others wouldn't listen to him. Reigns ended up asking Jey why they didn't listen. And the reason why they didn't listen, because they don't fear him. They don't fear Jey, as what Roman was saying. He ended up saying that they don't fear him because they don't respect Jey. Reigns ended up saying that if they don't respect Jey, then they don't respect us. And if they don't respect us, then who are we? Roman ended up saying that if he's not the head of the table, Jey must think he's some bitch in the locker room asking for leftovers from Thanksgiving. So Reigns ended up going on asking Jey how everyone else, including their family, looks at him. Reigns ended up asking Jey if he looks at him like some bitch in the locker room asking for leftovers. Reigns ended up saying that's how Jey is making him feel through his failures, and how he doesn't like how Jey is making him feel. So Reigns then dropped the mic, walked out of the ring. Jey Uso looked disappointed, and then Jey Uso made his way out of the ring. And that was that. I thought it was an okay segment to open SmackDown. Roman Reigns still doing a good job in his heel persona that WWE was giving him. So just Roman's coming off entertaining in this new role on WWE television, and it's the only good thing happening on SmackDown. So. And then Otis ended up coming out. This was originally supposed to be Otis versus Corbin, which thank God we didn't get the match. So Otis ended up coming down to the ring, and Jey Uso ended up attacking Otis from behind with the chair. Jey Uso ended up jabbing the chair into Otis, a few times. He was yelling at Otis. Jey ended up delivering more chair shots to Otis. He kept on yelling at him. Referee ended up running down, and then the referee ended up calling for help. Jey Uso then tossed a chair, and that was that. Then SmackDown went to commercial. But thank God we didn't get the match between Otis and Corbin. Although we will be seeing Corbin later on, where he ended up taking on Buddy Murphy, which, yeah, we all looked forward to that. And then we had the Street Profits versus Roode and Dolph Ziggler. Before the match got underway, Dolph and Rood were on the mic. They were making fun of Otis. And then they talked about how they want the smoke. No, they end up saying that they want the SmackDown Tag Team titles from the Street Profits. So then the Street Profits end up coming out. Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins end up getting on the mic. They end up talking about taking the torch from the New Day at Survivor Series. And then they joked about Roode and Ziggler. And then the match got underway, which the match itself was just a very meh match. Angelo Dawkins and Dolph Ziggler end up starting it off. Montez Ford ended up coming in, and they did a double team to Dolph Ziggler. Roode came in, and then the Profits end up taking him out. They end up delivering a flapjack to Roode. Angelo Dawkins ended up sending Roode out to the floor. Ziggler then ended up sending Dawkins out to the floor. And at the end of the match, we had Roode and Ziggler end up winning the match, where Roode ended up taking advantage of the match, and he rolled up Montez Ford. So you go, Roode and Dolph Ziggler end up winning, and I'm like, you had the Street Profits win on Sunday against the New Day. They beat the New Day. And then going into SmackDown tonight, you have the Profits lose against Roode and Dolph clean. Once again, WWE Creative in their 50-50 booking. But Vince and Bruce Pritchard, what they see, they're okay with it. Oh, and I gotta search this, because this was SmackDown news that came out. Apparently, the show was rewritten again. That's no surprise. I'm gonna get the article right here. Apparently, there was issues because Vince McMahon arrived to SmackDown late, and it says here that Dave Meltzer ended up noting that it was a mess backstage before the show even started. And the show was being rewritten, which that ain't no surprise. So in the article, it ended up saying that Vince McMahon didn't arrive until 12:30. And there was another source that said that nobody knew about the plans until Vince arrived. So apparently, they said that everything was going to change when Vince showed up. Apparently, look what happened. The show had to be rewritten. And then they did not even announce matches until 7:54. 6 minutes. 6 minutes until the show went on live on Fox at 8. So what does that tell you? So Roode and Ziggler end up winning. 50-50 booking once again by WWE Creative. You have the Profits win on Sunday, and then they lose tonight. Unbelievable. And then we saw Kayla Braxton backstage with Daniel Bryan. She was asking Daniel Bryan about getting the chance to turn his Intercontinental Championship vision to a reality. Daniel Bryan ended up saying that his strategy is acceptance. He went on about accepting how dangerous Jey Uso is these days. he ended up saying that he's accepting how Sami Zayn is as delusional as he's ever been because they've known each other for 15 years. Daniel Bryan wanted to say about how Sami's thinking that he's the greatest Intercontinental Champion, but he's just delusional. And Daniel Bryan ended up saying that he's here to break Sami Zayn's delusions. He ended up saying, despite what Sami thinks, he's not out to get Sami Zayn. He's out to get the Intercontinental Championship. And he will get one step closer to doing just that if he gets the win. So that was that. And then we had Kayla Braxton backstage with the Mysterio family. We have Rey Mysterio, Dominic, Aaliyah, and Buddy Murphy. Kayla ended up asking if they're relieved that the Seth Rollins feud is over, which I am glad that's finally over. So Rey ends up talking about family and says there's no payback for what happened. He ended up saying that they're thankful for many things, and that he's thankful for his son's career taking off, and that his daughter is turned into a mature woman, and for Buddy Murphy realizing what Seth Rollins really was. And then we had Corbin interrupt, and then, probably everybody was picking up their remotes, muting the TV, or changing the channel, because nobody wants to see Corbin on TV. So Corbin ends up interrupting. He ends up saying that the Mysterios are all one big happy family after one measly win over Rollins. He ended up calling it a joke. So Corbin ends up trashing Dominic's wrestling skills and Aaliyah's bad judgment and character. And Corbin also called out Buddy Murphy for riding Rey Mysterio's coattails while they're still worth something. So that was basically that, but this was absolutely terrible. I mean, the Mysterios go from Seth Rollins. They go from Seth Rollins, and now they're in a feud with Corbin. Awful. Absolutely awful. This is, and people, and you all think this is good television? With the Mysterios now in a feud with Corbin. Awful. So then we had Sami Zayn versus Daniel Bryan. Sami Zayn made his way out, and he got on the mic, and he ended up saying about why he doesn't respect Thanksgiving. He says he doesn't respect Thanksgiving because it celebrates the atrocities committed against the Native Americans. He said he also doesn't believe in the Eden, in the, all the Eden that goes on during Thanksgiving. So he ends up bringing up Daniel Bryan. He ends up saying that Daniel Bryan had his chance at the Intercontinental Championship. So Sami ended up ranting about how management is trying to sabotage him, and management tried to take the Intercontinental Championship away from him. And then Daniel Bryan came out. The match got underway, which the match itself was okay, in my opinion. It wasn't good, wasn't great, but it was just okay. So you had Sami Zayn stalling a few times here in the match. We had Sami keep control of the match later on. Daniel Bryan ended up hitting a Frankensteiner to Sami Zayn. Went for a cover. Sami ended up kicking out at 2. We saw Daniel Bryan end up dropping Sami Zayn with a kick. Sami ended up ducking a roundhouse kick from Daniel Bryan. And we had Daniel Bryan end up going out to the floor, laid out by a brainbuster from Sami Zayn, which he did it on the ring apron, which looked brutal. So at the end of the match, you had Sami Zayn trying to leave. Daniel Bryan then followed him up the ramp. Sami ended up dropping him as Jessica Carr was counting. Sami Zayn ended up running to the backstage area. Daniel Bryan ended up chasing him. And then Sami Zayn was shown running back out. He gets into the ring, and Jessica Carr was at the count of 9. And then she counted 10, rung the bell, and Daniel Bryan was nowhere to be seen. So Sami Zayn won the match by countout. And so we went to the back, and we saw Jey Uso beating up on Daniel Bryan in gorilla position. Kevin Owens ended up coming over to make the save. Jey Uso ended up shoving Kevin Owens, and Jey Uso ended up pounding on Daniel Bryan. We had officials end up getting involved, and Kevin Owens was stopping Jey Uso. Jey ended up yelling at Kevin Owens and ended up telling him that he knows where to find him if he wants to fight. So Kevin Owens had officials tend to Daniel Bryan, and ended up saying that he's going to find Jey. And that was that. SmackDown went to commercial. And then we saw Jey Uso talk to Roman and Paul Heyman backstage. Jey Uso ended up telling Roman that he's going to handle this, and that Roman should trust him. Kevin Owens then walked up, and he ended up saying that he's tired of Roman's family drama getting in the way of everything. So Kevin Owens ended up saying that for someone who talks so much about family being important, Roman sure does treat his family like crap. So Kevin Owens ended up walking off. Roman ended up telling Jey to take pride in how his sons look at him, and to understand that Roman takes pride in how his own sons look at him. So Roman ended up saying that Kevin Owens does not look at him with fear, and that he wants Jey to fix it. So that was that. So that's what sparked the match, which was the main event. Kevin Owens versus Jey Uso. And then we had Natalya versus Bianca Belair. This was a quick match. This was a terrible match. It was cool seeing Bianca on TV as always. You had Bayley out there. Bayley was on commentary. And, Bianca looked pretty decent here in the match against Natalya. But still, it didn't save the match from being, decent or a good women's match. It was still terrible, in my opinion. So there was a point where Bianca Belair was yelling at Bayley, or Bayley was yelling at Bianca, and Natalya ended up coming from behind, and Bianca ended up ducking a clothesline. We had Bianca end up dropping Bayley with a right hand. Natalya then brought Bianca back into the ring. Bayley ended up coming on the ring apron, and Bianca ended up sending Natalya into Bayley, knocking Bayley down to the floor, and it led to Bianca rolling up Natalya for the win. So there you go. Bianca ended up winning the match. And then post-match, we saw Bayley end up yelling at Bianca from ringside, and Bayley ended up teasing coming into the ring, but she ended up staying on the ring apron. So that was that. And there was a point where Bayley, didn't want to talk about the Survivor Series loss because she blamed everything on Bianca. So looks like we're possibly going to get, Bianca versus Bayley. So we all know WWE is going to make that official. And then we had Buddy Murphy versus Corbin. This was a terrible match in my opinion. This was god-awful, where we had the Mysterio family out there, and the Mysterios were distracting Corbin you had Dominic, Ray, and Aaliyah distracting Corbin. Corbin was getting frustrated because of that. Dominic got on the ring apron and provided a distraction. Corbin ended up leveling Buddy Murphy with the shoulder. After that, Ray got on the ring apron, and Corbin was complaining to the referee. So Corbin ended up missing the corner, and Buddy Murphy ended up rolling up Corbin. Corbin ended up kicking out at 2. So Corbin was yelling at Ray and Dominic because they were distracting him from the ring apron. Corbin ended up whipping Buddy Murphy into the corner. Corbin then ran out of the ring. He tried to get back in, but Aaliyah ended up getting in his way. So Corbin was complaining about all the interference. So then you had Dominic end up jumping on the ring apron again. Corbin then ended up launching Buddy Murphy into the corner. Dominic ended up grabbing Corbin's foot when he was on the ropes. And then Dominic ended up pushing Corbin's foot off of the rope. And, because Buddy Murphy ended up going for the pin. Corbin ended up having his foot on the rope, but Dominic ended up pushing it off. And then Buddy Murphy ended up getting the win because of that. So there you go. Post-match, you had Corbin was furious because of the distractions from the Mysterios. He ended up getting on the mic, and he ends up calling the Mysterios a bunch of spineless cowards. So Corbin ended up telling Buddy Murphy that he wants a rematch next week. And he ended up saying that this time he will be prepared. So there you go. We're getting a rematch next week. Oh joy. Oh joy. Who's gonna be changing the channel next week during that match? But yeah, it was really supposed to be Otis versus Corbin earlier in the night, so Corbin had to take on Buddy Murphy. And then we saw Big E backstage. He was messing with Apollo Crews. Sami Zayn ended up walking up, and he ended up saying that he wants them to get out of the way so he can speak to Caleb Braxton about his win over Daniel Bryan. So Sami ends up knocking Apollo, and Apollo ends up threatening that he will see Sami Zayn soon. So Apollo then ended up walking off. Big E ended up getting in Sami Zayn's face. He was taunting Sami Zayn and threatening that his house can easily come crumbling down. So Sami Zayn ends up ranting about respect, and he says that Big E's attitude is coming off like sour grapes. Sami ended up saying that he's in the middle of his historic Intercontinental Championship reign, and it's been ages since Big E had an unforgettable reign. Sami Zayn ended up saying that Big E should be applauding him. So Big E ends up mocking Sami Zayn. He grips Sami Zayn's hand for a shake. He tightens his hand on Sami. He tightens it for 10 seconds. And he was hurting Sami Zayn's hand, continuing to mock him. So Big E then ends up walking off. Caleb Braxton was ready to interview Sami Zayn, but Sami ends up yelling at her. And Sami ends up saying he is no longer interested in doing the interview because of what Big E did. So that was that. And then we had this whole thing with Billie Kay out there. Billie Kay interrupts Michael Cole and Corey Graves. And she has her headshots and her resume. She was offering to take over the show from Michael Cole and Corey Graves. Awful. God awful. And then we had a backstage promo from Carmella. We saw, replays of her attacks to Sasha Banks. Carmella ended up saying that she's glad Sasha and Bayley are done playing their games, because it's time for everyone to find out who the most dominant woman in WWE is. She went on to say that she used to be like Sasha, but she lost herself, and then she lost it all when she started doing things for fans, for everybody else. She ended up saying that she's not doing anything for anyone else anymore, because now she calls the shots and gives the orders while everyone else jumps for her. So Carmella then snapped her fingers for somebody to hand her champagne. So the glass with the champagne did not appear. So she ended up looking annoyed. She snapped her fingers again. And this time we saw a hand give her the glass of champagne. And of course it was Sasha. She was wearing the Boss jewelry on her hand. So Sasha ended up attacking Carmella. Sasha ended up dropping Carmella for the bank statement. And officials came back there to break it up. And that was that. Then we had the main event. Jey Uso versus Kevin Owens. Now this was a pretty okay match up until the end, which the end was terrible, in my opinion. But we saw beginning of the match, both Jey Uso and Kevin Owens end up locking up. I mean, like I said at the beginning, we saw them go at it a few weeks ago. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing we saw, a few weeks back. But still, the match here was okay up until the end, which I thought was terrible. So Jey Uso ended up taking Kevin Owens into the corner. Kevin Owens ended up fighting off, and he beat Jey Uso around the ring. And Kevin Owens was rocking Jey Uso with forearms into the barricade. We saw Paul Heyman and Roman watching in the back. At the end of the match, we had Jey Uso end up bringing the chair in, and he ends up smacking Kevin Owens with it, which caused a disqualification. So Kevin Owens ended up winning by disqualification. So post-match, Jey Uso then ended up delivering another chair shot to Kevin Owens. And then we saw Roman and Paul Heyman watching backstage. Jey Uso then ended up clearing the announce table. He ended up coming back into the ring. Kevin Owens then ended up dropping Jey with a stunner. And because Owens ended up dropping Jey with the stunner, Roman looked upset. So they went back to the floor. Kevin Owens ended up tossing Jey over the announce table. Kevin Owens then ended up bringing a chair over, started hitting Jey Uso with the chair, beating him over the back. And Kevin Owens was yelling at the camera. He was taunting Roman, and he was talking about how he fears no one. So Kevin Owens was just delivering chair shot after chair shot to Jey. Referee ended up coming over to Kevin Owens, telling him, "Oh, you did enough." So Kevin Owens then turned back to the camera and ended up saying that he does not fear Roman. So Owens ends up telling Roman that if he's got a problem with him, Roman should come say it in his face. So Kevin Owens then ended up standing on top of the announce table. He was yelling at Roman to come find him. Kevin Owens ended up saying that he's the head of this table now. So Jey Uso was shown crawling into the ring. Kevin Owens ended up running into the ring, and he ended up dropping Jey with another stunner. And he ended up saying that this is all for Roman's family. So Owens ended up going back out to the announce table, sits at the head of the announce table, starts taunting Roman, and asking, "Where is he?" So Roman was watching from the back, and Kevin Owens was telling him that he will be waiting. He will be waiting for Roman. And then Roman was shown furious. He crossed his arms, and he starts looking down, and SmackDown went off the air. So it looks like Kevin Owens is going to be the next opponent for Roman Reigns. But overall, that was SmackDown. Terrible show. It's god-awful. But anyways, that's it for the SmackDown review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and until next video, I'll see you all later.